Welcome back to another episode of Senior Moments. I'm Michelle Runyon, Director of Community Engagement for Hunk Community, and really excited to have with us today Paula Struckman. You, Paula, welcome first of all.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know what? We're so fortunate to have you here. You're a fairly recent resident. You came this past December.
I am new, yes.
Yes, you're new. And I heard through the grapevine that you were very interested in anthropology and that you had life experience exploring interesting places in the world. And so I gravitated right towards you, right? And so I thought it would be very interesting if we could discuss that today. Would you tell us how you got interested in anthropology?
I didn't know where to go to college, and it happened that somebody from Reed College stopped in my hometown of Pocatello, Idaho, and talked about Reed College and some of the interesting, it was based on the University of Chicago educational system. Mm-hmm. And this meant that you were required to take 2 years of history of civilization at 6 or 7 units a semester. And I thought that was a pretty fascinating thing to do.
Yeah. And
so I started at Reed, and then I transferred to Occidental College because I didn't like the Portland, Oregon climate. Oh. And I went to, there were only 3 colleges on the West Coast with the University of Chicago system, and that was Reed, Pomona, and Occidental. And when I went to Occidental, I was about to graduate and realized I was required to take a course in religion. Well, that didn't really interest me. Mm-hmm. So I went to the first class, and I found out that the woman who taught it was an anthropologist, and she was the sister of Ruth Benedict. And Ruth Benedict had been hired by the United States government to study the Japanese during World War II, so that at the end of the war, when we won, we would know how to treat the people and integrate them into our society without being like this. Mm. And so she taught anthropology as if you have 2 different groups, and one lives on the one side of an island, which could be desert, and the other on the other side where there was lots of water. How did these 2 people think, because they had to think differently. Mm. And she brought into anthropology as being where you lived affected the way that life treated you. And that became very interesting to me, and so I decided on my spare time to pursue anthropology.
That is fascinating. But then you continued your studies in anthropology.
I continued to study that, yes.
And then later on in life, you were able to travel to different places in the world. Right. Where are some of the places that you traveled and got to explore with that anthropological eye?
My husband worked at Sanders, and he received an award that was given once a year to an engineer, and it was $15,000 or any place that your security clearance would let you travel. Mm-hmm. And I asked him, do you have any place you especially want to go? And he said, no, he hadn't been out of the country. And I said, well, I haven't either, but I think Peru would be fascinating. Mm. And so he said, okay, let's go to Peru. And we started there, and I remember arriving in the middle of the night because our plane was delayed. And we were supposed to be met by somebody who would take us throughout the countryside. And the theory was that this airplane we were on twice a week landed in Peru, and if there was one person signed up for a tour, or whether a dozen people signed up for a tour, you would be taken around the country. Mm-hmm. And we had signed up, and we were the only people, so we had private tour all through Peru.
Oh, wow. Very, very nice.
But when we got there, we were shocked because it was the middle of the night, and the man who was supposed to meet us at the airplane decided to send just his driver because it was late. Mm. And we walked out, we got in the car, and there's a demonstration of the Shining Path. And the Shining Path was trying to overthrow the Peruvian government. And the driver said, well, let's stop. And my husband says, no, we're going to go right through. And he grabbed the wheel of the car, and we went through all these people and the protesters.
Wow.
And we got to the hotel, and it was such a relief. The day after a tour of the Lima, we were to go into the interior of Peru to Machu Picchu. Yes. And I asked, I had read a book, and I know that the altitude was very, very different, very high in Machu Picchu. And so this book that I read said, ask somebody at the hotel to get you, and he had this prescription, and he said, and you won't have altitude sickness. And I thought, okay. So I gave it to somebody, and he brought us the prescription. Keith had his and went to sleep like that. I went to sleep, but I didn't, I'd say I went to bed, but I didn't sleep. I was awake all night, and my mind just kept going and going and going. And when I got up, I finally looked and checked on what this prescription was, and it was a drug.
That kept you up all night?
It was a drug that kept me up all night, yes.
So it wasn't for high altitude sickness?
And well, they took it because it helped with high altitude sickness.
Yeah.
But it scared me to death because I knew that I would be addicted if I took one more, because I felt so wonderful.
Oh! So you got a high
That's right.
off the not getting
So we're going to the altitude, yeah.
Yes. Please tell me you didn't miss Machu Picchu, though.
No, we went to Machu Picchu.
Oh, good. Oh, I'm so relieved.
We went all through Peru. At one point, we met the Shining Path again. We went through the headquarters, but we were on a train. And when we approached the headquarters, the conductor came back and asked us to please hide under the table so they wouldn't see Americans on the train. If they did, they might attack us. So we went through part of Peru under the table.
What are your thoughts of Machu Picchu? What were your thoughts?
Oh, it was a wonderful place.
Yeah.
Very, well, I should say wonderful, except for the fact that there was, every day they had a group that would climb to the top of the peak. And I thought that would be very exciting. And Keith did too. Mm-hmm. And so we were ready to start, and Keith talked with the guide, and he said, Paula, he said, quite honestly, I don't think you should go. I don't think you're sure-footed enough, but I'm going to go. And I said, okay. So he went, and the man who led took the wrong way, and they were stuck.
Oh. And
it was very frightening, because if you took a wrong step, you would fall all the way down into the river. And somehow or other, Keith, the guide, managed to get to a safe place, and Keith managed, and there were two women who went, and they actually climbed barefoot. and they made it to the top. But he said, Paula, he said, you never would have made it to the top.
So he made the right call for you.
So he
then.
made the right call.
Wow, 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 that's terrifying.
So he had some exciting adventures there.
Well, everything you just told me, I'm surprised that he was willing to go on another world trip. Where did you go after Peru?
Oh, I had the chance to meet a woman when she came to the United States. She was from Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And the League of Women Voters every year selects two different countries, and then they ask its chapters to write, if these two people came to you for 6 weeks, how would you entertain them and what would you do?
Mm-hmm.
And in Grand Junction, Colorado, I knew the head of the group, and she couldn't find anybody who would house them. But what they had submitted to the main group, they selected Grand Junction as the place to send a woman from Ukraine and a woman from Russia. And so I talked with the woman. I said, look, I said, my husband has a security clearance, but he's busy. He's working right now in Colorado. So if we keep it very quiet, I said, and I can pick whether I choose the Russian or Ukrainian, I will house one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I picked the Ukrainian and became very close to her.
Mm.
And she invited us to go visit Ukraine. And for a while, when Keith quit Sanders at 65, he didn't have a security clearance, so he could go. And what he wanted to do was he wanted to visit Chernobyl. And so we went to Ukraine. We saw the beauty of Ukraine. And then we told our hostess that we wanted to go to Chernobyl, and she said, no, you don't want to go there. There are Russians there, you don't want to go. But we did, and so we found a guide who would take us, and we were some of the first people who were first civilians admitted to go through Chernobyl and see what it was like. And so we took pictures and came back with a video of what had happened in Ukraine and what happened when the Russians came and the Russians were forced to leave. And it was very, very fascinating.
We're going to wrap it up here, but I have a feeling there's so much more that you and I could talk about, and I'd like to invite you back another time.
Yes, thank you very much,
Paula, thank
Michelle.
you for being here.